before we get into weaving, I find it useful to do a quick review of the knots using something that's easier to tie, like a soft cord, versus jumping right into the heavy, stiff fish line. So you can shorten your line so that it'll just pass, maybe it's about twice the width of your snowshoe, and just clamp the one end to fix it. So we'll just be working with our free end for now. The first knot, you won't use it very often, just when you're tying on to start your weave, and again when you're tying off to finish the weave. We just use the most basic of knots, the half hitch. Typically a double half hitch would do well, but with the slippery fish line I like to do a triple half hitch. So for a half hitch, I'm going to take my line, pass it over the snowshoe frame on the right side, pass it under the snowshoe frame, bring the line up and pass it over itself, so I've crossed the line, and now this little space that I've left between the cross in the line and the snowshoe frame, I'll just pass the end of the line through that. So that's my half hitch. That's our most basic of knots. It's just one twist in the line and pass your line through that twist. Pull it nice and tight to the frame. That's a single half hitch. To continue on to the double half hitch, I'll just pass the line around itself once more and pass it into that loop that I create. Pull that tight, clean up the knot so that both of those two half hitches are stacked up nice and neat here on the side of the frame. That would do well with this string, but with the fish line I'll go once more past the line around itself and into that loop I'm creating, and then dress it up nice and neat by pulling that knot nice and tight to the other ones. There's my triple half hitch. And I also, especially with the stiff fish line, I don't like to snip it real short and then it sticks up like a little bristle. I'll leave it a little bit long and then I can just tuck that into my weave later. So let's try that once more. Untie that. I've secured one end of my line. Take the other end, pass it over the frame, back under the frame, over itself, and into the little space that I've created between the frame and the line. Pull nice and tight. Keep rolling around the line another time into that loop. Pull it nice and tight and keep that line rolling again around itself into the loop, and that's our triple half hitch. The lark's head can seem like a little less familiar knot, but it's actually just a girth hitch tied a slightly different way. And most of us, even if we don't know the name of the girth hitch, we are familiar with the girth hitch. Now, girth hitch is simply when we take the middle of a piece of string, you can do that now, and then pass the two tails around the object you want to tie to. So I'm passing the two tails of the string around the snowshoe frame and then just pass them under the string. So just passed it, I just passed the two tails through the string, I pull tight, and that is a girth hitch, also known as a lark's head knot when we tie it slightly differently. And this is the key feature. Both of our tails of string are coming out from the middle of the knot here, so that's what we're looking for. Now, unfortunately, it's very easy to tie that girth hitch. Unfortunately, with snowshoe weaving, we don't have both ends of the fish line free, so we'll have to tie it a bit differently. So I'll get you to secure the string on the left side of the frame again, so that we just have one end to work with. So when we're tying the lark's head, it's a little bit different. We're going to go over the frame, under the frame, over the line. So we've crossed the line over itself, and then we will go immediately back underneath the frame, over the frame again, and I've held on, with my left hand, I've held on to this loop of line, and I will pass the end of the rope underneath that loop. Pull all that tight, and you end up with that nice familiar girth hitch where I've got 2 strands coming through a bend of rope. And you can pull that nice and tight. So we'll try that again. I've secured the line along the left side of the frame. I'll take my free end of line, pass it over the frame, under the frame, cross it over itself, hold on to that piece that just made that cross, then you'll send your free end under the frame, back over the frame, and underneath that piece of string you were holding on to, and you'll find your old familiar lark's head knot. Now it's really easy to do here when we're doing the step-by-step instructions. As soon as we start into the pattern and you start trying to remember all these other aspects of the pattern, the lark's head seems to be the first knot that goes right out of people's minds and gives them trouble all day. So it's worthwhile to spend a little bit of practice here on the lark's head and also to look at it and just remember what it looks like here. And that's why I showed you that girth hitch as a reminder of another way to tie it and how it should look when it's done. So now I've made it down here to my lark's head right, and it doesn't quite look like I'll make it over to my right side. So it's time now, at a lark's head is the perfect time to splice on another piece of line. So I'm going to measure, I want the cable crimp, I'm going to use these little aluminum cable crimps to add a new piece. And I want that cable crimp to lay right here on the inside of the snowshoe frame. So I'll measure, I'll start my lark's head. I'm going over the frame, under the frame, and then I'd come back up as if I was going to continue my lark's head by going over itself here. But I'll stop right here, and I want to clip my line right here at the top of the frame, which will leave the end of the line right along the inside of the frame. So I'll just snip that. So I just snip that right at the top of the frame. I'll count more coils here. Okay, it doesn't matter that my lark's head has started to undo itself. That's okay. I measured it in the right spot and snipped it, so when I go to tie it again, it'll be the correct length. And I simply insert that crimp onto one end of my new line. I'll have the old line going in the opposite direction there. Got a little anvil. You can use a nice flat rock or a piece of concrete floor as well. And I just like to have that fish line protrude past the crimp just a little bit. Just gives it a bit more bite. And then I'm using the rounded end of a ball peen hammer. And just flattening that out. A couple shots on the other side as well.